As usual, I want to thank the immense support on the channel. Since I didn't have an intro last time, I didn't get to mention that when I hit 1k, I'll be doing a poll on my community tab on whether you want me to use my voice or keep the TTS spot due to the increasing demands. Without further ado, here's a guide.
Winston's primary fire, the Zappy Boi, makes Winston fire an 8-meter range Tesla cannon dealing 60 damage per second, with a 6-meter width, consuming 20 rounds per second with an ammo capacity of 100. Starting off interweaving tech and usage, against an armored opponent, you want to weave in your melee as the damage from your Tesla cannon is halved against armor, alongside making you more ammo efficient. Secondly, you'd actually be looking to use your Tesla cannon on cleaving multiple tanks more than focusing squishy targets in order to build primal as fast as possible. I advise against doing this in the higher ranks as you'll be able to control your primal better, alongside better positioning which is harder to punish. There are also too many stuns in the game for Winston to dive a squishy alone. Hence soft engaging by poking down tanks will open up opportunities for your damage dealers to land their shots and cooldowns. Thirdly, you want to utilize the 8-meter range by widening your field of view in order to be able to cleave multiple enemies. You have to actually be quite accurate in close range encounters due to how narrow Winston's Tesla cannon is. Winston's first ability, the Jumpy Boi, makes Winston leap at an initial velocity of 30 meters per second, with a max travel range of up to 22 meters, dealing up to 50 damage when landing in a 5-meter radius, with a 6-second cooldown. I also want to quickly mention that the max damage may be 45 rather than 50 as in my testing. It's been very hard to pull off the max damage. Believe it or not, there's quite a lot of complexity in just a jump pack. Firstly, you can conserve your momentum by jumping when you land, making you perform a small skip, similar to Moira Fade. Secondly, your jump pack when activated has a slight bit of knockback which can occasionally grant you a kill. Thirdly, you can cancel your melee with your jump pack landing animation, dealing a total of up to 80 damage, although due to the severe fall off of Winston's jump pack, you will deal around 60 damage in most scenarios. Fourthly, there is a minimum takeoff angle as Gene goes on to further explain here.
So no matter where you look below the minimum takeoff angle, you're going to take off at that minimum takeoff angle. And this is also what prevents you from like jumping through low doorways. Even if you look at the ground, you're still going to hit your head on the doorframe. And this is also why, for example, on like Nepal Shrine, there's the left, that's the inside by the Mega, and then there's the main and the right side. If you're playing, for example, a Reinhardt comp into a dive comp and the dive comp team is defending, you would attack left because the Winston can't dive your supports because you're inside through doorways.
Moving more onto the usage side of things, use your jump on slanted surfaces for a reduced cooldown as Jane yet again further explains.
If I just jump on something, my cooldown's at 5 seconds. If you use slanted surfaces to surf, I arrived with my jump at 3 seconds cooldown, so I can be here for only 3 seconds before I have to jump out.
Secondly, learn when to control the trajectory of your jump by late and early inputs as CarQ goes to explain here.
The late input is if you input a direction after any of the 3 basic jumps from a neutral position. The early input is if you input a direction before any of the 3 jumps, so you're already kind of moving beforehand. Use the S key or down on the analog stick. Doing this on a late input pulls you back just a little bit, whereas doing this on an early input significantly reduces your overall distance.
Winston can jump as short as 7 meters, but as far as 25 to 30 meters. Hence mastering these jumps take time to accurately land the maximum amount of damage. Thirdly, you want to utilize the knockback from your jumps in order to block retreats for the enemy.
But if you know a target only has one route of retreat on Winston, instead of jumping in front of them, jump behind them, body block them so that they can't retreat as quickly.
Fourthly, there are 2 types of jumps you can do, a vertical one launching you in straight in the air, and a horizontal one also known as a short jump. Jane explains here why the latter is more ideal than the former out of these 2.
So if you want to attack a McCree bot or something, you can jump vertically and then kind of like aim at them. But the other thing is that takes way too long and it makes you more susceptible to damage. Whereas if you just learn your short jumps, so how long you need to actually hold the S button, then that's more effective at controlling your distance.
Fifthly, you want to save your jump in order to escape engagements, using your normal walk to reach the enemy. This is because it can be very easy to burst a Winston down in before he gets the jump pack cooldown off, hence dropping from high ground such as on Hollywood's second point defense, or sneakily hiding and flanking to your enemy will be much more effective in saving your cooldown to escape. However, lastly, there are exceptions to this rule. For example, if you have a guaranteed route of retreat such as dropping off high ground, such as on Numbany first point attack, it can be worth using your jump first as you can always drop off to point. Another exception would be setting up a crossfire. For example, when running Sombra Doom Winston Diva, your Diva can matrix you, with your Doom engaging from a different angle, and your Sombra scouting and shooting behind the target you are diving. For a short too long didn't watch, you want to primarily use your jump for mobility or damage. Mobility carries two subcategories, pursuit and escape, and damage can be enhanced by the jump melee animation cancel. Winston's second ability, Bubble V3. Makes Winston project a shield dome with a 5-meter radius, 700 health, lasting 9 seconds with a 13-second cooldown. Firstly, you can animation cancel placing your dome with your melee, meaning that you can combo this with the landing melee cancel. You can also cancel your reload by using the shield. However, the 1.7 second reload time still persists as you can see here, hence I'd avoid doing this. Secondly, and most importantly, you want to be using your shield to block cooldowns and not damage, as that is a job suited for Reinhardt and Orisa. You ideally want your shield to eat on a sleep dart, her nade, Briggs bash, Hog's hook, Orisa's hold, and much more, which can then make space for your DPS to freely frag on the enemy squishy targets. Thirdly, building on the last point, learn how to shield dance. This is simply done by weaving on the opposite side of your shield that your enemy is on. Fourthly, building on that idea even further, even though blocking the stun is your top priority, if the enemy you are diving has no stun, try and bubble as late as possible.
If you drop your bubble on land and then the McCree is here and he chases outside, then you have to exit your bubble to finish him off. But if you land and chase but then bubble here, you can actually chase farther before the McCree kites you away and then you could escape however you want.
Fifthly, similar to Zarya's bubble in between team fights, use your bubble aggressively to be able to poke down enemies within your range, but to not feed ult charge. The 13-second cooldown won't matter as you should have your bubble back up before the start of the next team fight. For the penultimate tip, you can and should use your bubble in order to control as much map as possible.
This is really quite decent, because if the opponent wants to use this space, they're going to have to fight you for it. And if the opponent is going here and they're going to branch around either the right or the left side of this box here, if they do so without forcing you out, then you can get onto their backline without having to use jump. So you can be there, you can drop your bubble as you place, and if they use cooldowns to try and peel for you, you can jump out safely. What happens if their diva comes up to fight you? What would allow you to hold your position? What is more important, this space or your bubble? That space is more important, and that bubble gives you a massive advantage. You can shut down the micros and the fusions of diva and force her to take a shit ton of damage if you shield dance correctly, and then she's going to have to retreat. And you've got this little gap here at the back where you can get healed by Ana. So you're going to be able to hold space better and control the map better. If she retreats, now suddenly you've got this space, your bubble's going to be coming off cooldowns, and they need to stabilize, and they can't do anything. And this effectively has given you control of this part of the map. Now, with you backing off here and your team not doing anything about the right side, instead of your team having control of this area of the map, you've got like here forward.
Lastly, you can block off healing with your bubble and your grav, as the shock do here.
Car, incredibly defensive play, but instant grab and a shredlock gonna force the trance in the perfect bubble by Smurf. It cuts out the trance.
Winston's ultimate, Angry Boy, makes Winston embrace his animalistic nature, refreshing his health pool to 1000, dealing 40 damage per swing, with a 30% increase in movement speed, with massive 4-meter swings. Winston can also swing every 0.66 seconds, alongside Primal Rage lasting 10 seconds. Also note that Winston's jump pack cooldown goes from 6 seconds to 2 seconds, and that if you finish Primal with more than 400 health at the end of the duration, your normal health goes to 400. Starting off with 4 very important interactions. Firstly, your jump cooldown is refreshed when you use Primal, meaning you can travel as far as a Reinhardt's pin in a fraction of the time. Secondly, your jump cooldown is also refreshed when exiting Primal, meaning you can make a quick escape as well, or pursue any stragglers. Thirdly, when considering the melee hitbox, you can often jump over the enemy. In order to remedy this, simply look down when smacking your enemy in order to place the enemy in your hitbox. Lastly, similar with extending Reinhardt's melee animation by turning in the same direction that your hammer swings, you want to turn your camera in the direction that Winston swings his fists to increase the size of the hitbox. Moving on to usage. Whilst this isn't a conceptually difficult piece of kit for Winston to grasp, the execution required to eliminate a single target requires many hours of practice to get it down consistently in each game. The main use of your Primal is to focus down one single target instead of booping every enemy you see. Here's KarQ going in depth about the Primal combo, which takes advantage of previous tech mentioned.
So, jump onto an enemy and use your Tesla cannon on them as soon as you get in range, and make sure to combo it with a melee when you land. This already does like 50 to 90 damage with the basic attack plus melee plus jump pack landing damage. Then transform to Primal Rage and use your first smack. You're then going to follow up with a low jump. Now you use your second smack in mid-air, around halfway through your jump. Then you land from the jump pack in front of them. Then use your third smack.
Here he is again explaining how to do the triple melee combo, which is slightly easier than the prior combo.
1. Use the first smack, which does 40 damage. 2. Start your second smack first, then use your low jump after, so that it makes contact with the enemy near the end of the animation. This gives you enough time to start the third smack just as you land before they get booped too far from the second smack.
Building on this idea of focusing down a single target, you'll often want to juggle them in a corner. In order to do this, you want to continuously swing so that you constantly utilize the knockback from your fists, as well as swing in front of them so that you don't accidentally boop them out of the corner. Thirdly, you ideally want to use your jump off cooldown to get the extra damage. Fourthly, building on this idea, you want to short jump in front of them as this is the least amount of distance you can travel, alongside taking a step back every time you jump so you always land your short jump in front of your enemy. In terms of other ways to use Primal, creating space and directing healing resources away from the front line is certainly viable, especially against characters who need line of sight, such as Ana. However, this would require some coordination for your team as a whole to push up and kill the tanks while you displace the enemy backline. Primal can also be used to eat a ton of stuns whilst forcing about key abilities such as Bap's Lamp or Zen's Transcendence in order to make way for your actual win condition, such as making sure that your Nano Blade doesn't get countered by the enemy backline utility. Lastly, Primal can be used to stall for as long as possible in order to get ultimates up of your own, especially when considering you can wait until you are below 100 health, then using Primal to refresh all your cooldowns and gain 1000 health. One small things before moving on to the next section. I recommend using your bubble as deep as possible before you use Primal, as you can't use your bubble during Primal. This can offer some protection for not only you, but also your teammates who may be diving with you. You could also use your bubble on your supports, then take advantage of the jump cooldown refresh to get back in the fight quickly. Moving on to the penultimate section of playstyle and positioning. This mainly depends upon your team composition, unlike some other characters, as this will be determining whether your target priority, your win condition, and how fast you play. When running long range, high damage DPS characters such as Pharah, Hanzo, or Widowmaker, you want to be playing much slower, posturing around the tanks, as Jean goes on to further elaborate here.
You're running Pharah and you're running Hanzo, so you can't proactively stage a dive or anything like that, but what you can do is you can prevent the opponent from diving on you, and then after that you can force mistakes or force the opponents to do something because you have higher damage as well. The tank simply can't exist in this contesting state for very long.
However, when running a dive DPS duo, you want to stage your dive, and with Sombra Doom, you want to set up a kill box where your cleave burst damage kills anyone in this area. I'll elaborate on this type of dive in the future. As usual, finishing off with backline synergy. Winston's area, this is definitely an underrated combo, as Winston is guaranteed to take damage during a dive. Make sure to call for your Zarya to push up when you create space to be able to retain it over time. Both of your weapons are also cleave beam damage, meaning that this is on paper a good duo against D.Va. Winston Sigma. Whilst this duo has no direct synergy in terms of ultimates and abilities, you have good coverage of the high and low ground. However, perhaps Reinhardt is a better pick than Sigma in order to be more aggressive whenever you dive in on the backline. Winston Reinhardt. This has a slightly better synergy than the previous combo due to the Winston barrier being used to block important cooldowns such as nade, which can prevent your Reinhardt from being aggressive. Although target priority and playstyle pace may differ, Winston Orisa. Whilst you can combo your jump pack with Orisa's hold, there are much more efficient combos, alongside your inability to dive the backline without feeding due to Orisa's static nature. Soft flanks and soft engages are by far your best bet, but if you are forced to poke down tanks, Sigma may be the better pick. Winston Hog. This is the worst duo for Winston due to the little synergy that both of them have. Ball Hog would be much better due to each tank being able to survive on their own, whereas you'd be constantly stuck in the poke phase as Winston, as you'll hardly have any frontline support. Winston Ball. This is the most aggressive dive due to Ball's pile driver burst alongside your jump pack melee burst. However, there is nothing to stop you from taking damage, and if the enemy team have menace stuns alongside the ability to kite on a wide map such as Junkertown, you will most likely feed. Winston D.Va. Best for last. This way, you have some safety during your dive, alongside the versatility to posture and poke against both tanks better than Winston Ball in case you want to play a slow dive. That's it for the guide. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. If this video also helped to raise your IQ, be sure to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.
Fuck you. Big boy with that big broom. Big boy how I come through. Big boy with that brand new, cause I'm killing it.